Hi, Divya Sharma, and in today's lecture, I would like to throw some light upon the topic Indian Trust Act 1882. In this video, I will cover several topics like what is the meaning of trust, who can create trust, what is the subject matter of trust, what are the ingredients of trust, trustees under trust law, and the duties of trustee. So the law relating to the private trust and the trustees is codified under Indian Trust Act 1882. The word trust can be traced back to the ancient times when we humans got the motivation to do charity and dedicate the property for charitable and religious purposes in the form of dharamshalas or medical or educational institutions. The trust laws came to India by English trust laws, which stipulates the dual ownership of trust property, that is, legal title vests with the trustees and the equitable titles vest with the beneficiaries. On this basis, Indian Trust Act 1882 was enacted. It covers the private trust and the family's trust. This act has basically 96 sections, one schedule, and it extends to whole of India except J&K and Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So basically the literal meaning of the word trust is basically the confidence, trust or hope in someone or something. The word trust has been defined under Section 3 of the Act, which states trust is nothing but just a transfer of property from one person to another person, on whom the author has the confidence for the benefit of third person. So in order to understand, let's take an example. Suppose there are two persons, Mr. A and Mr. B. Mr. A passes his property to Mr. B for the benefit of his minor granddaughter. Over here, Mr. A passes his property to Mr. B because he reposes the confidence on Mr. B. Mr. A basically created the trust, so he is known by several names like author, donor, settler or the creator. And Mr. B, upon whom the trust is being reposed, is known as trustee. So basically, if we talk about the classification of trust, it is classified into private trust and the public trust. Private trust is basically for the closed group and the public trust is basically for the larger group, that is public, example NGOs. So if we state that whether a trust is a person or not, then it was well stated by the case Jet Airways India Limited versus Institution of Culture and Social Studies. The records of the case states that basically the respondent and the complainant, that is Institution of Social and Culture Studies, is basically a trust registered under Indian Trust Act 1882. And it was settled that it is not a consumer cannot file a consumer complaint. And hence the district form cannot enter into the merits of the case because the respondent and the complainant is basically not a consumer but a trust. So if we go on further and talk about the ingredients of trust, there are basically 5 ingredients. Firstly, the author who created the trust. Second is the trustee upon whom the confidence is reposed. Third, property is basically the property that is shifted from one person to another person. It could be a movable property or an immovable property. And beneficiary, for whose benefit the trust is created. And the most important is basically the trustee. When there is a sort of a creation of trust, there is a sort of agreement between the trustee and the author. So it is known as a trust deed. So if we go on further and talk about what is the object behind the creation of trust, it is basically created for lawful purpose. Otherwise the trust is void. Suppose there are two purposes. One is lawful, another one is unlawful. And both of them cannot be separated. Then the trust will be totally void. So if you want that your trust should be lawful, it should not fall under 5 categories. It should not be forbidden by law. It should not violate the provisions of law. It should not be fraudulent in nature as fraud is being defined under Section 17 of Indian Contract Act. It should not injure somebody or his property. It should not violate any public policy. So if we state that who can create trust, it was well stated under Section 7 of the Act. That states that any person who is capable of doing a contract under Section 11 of the Indian Contract Act is capable of becoming trustee. But the trustee should be of sound mind, should not be disqualified by law, and should not be insolvent. Even a minor can create a trust, but the permission has to be given by the principal civil court of original jurisdiction. If we state about what is the subject matter behind the creation of trust, basically it is the property that is being transferred from the author to the trustee. And the property could be a movable property or an immovable property. It was well stated by the section 8 of the Act. So if the question arises, then who is capable of becoming a trustee? The answer to this question lies under section 10 of the Act, that states any person who is capable of holding the property can be a trustee. A corporation can be a trustee, and a legitimate child can be a trustee, a married woman can be a trustee. When trust is designated to a certain person, then it is upon him to whether to accept a trust or disclaim a trust. So in this video, at last, I would cover the topic is basically duties of trustee. Basically, it is stated under chapter 3 of the Act. And chapter 3 is further divided under two parts: duties of trustee, liabilities of trustee. But in this video, I will only cover duties of trustee that are stated under section 11 to 22 of the Act. Firstly, section 11 states that to execute the trust, trustee is basically bound to follow the direction of the author, but he is not bound to follow the directions that are basically impracticable or illegal in nature. Second one, that is stated under section 12 of the Act, that states to inform himself about the state of the trust property. He should be familiar with the nature and the circumstances of the trust property. Third one, that states about the section 13, that is to protect the titles of the trust property. Section 15 states that care is being required. Trustee should act with a due care and reasonable diligence. Section 16 states to convert the perishable property. Section 17 basically states about to be impartial. Basically, the trustee has to be impartial if there are more beneficiaries. Section 18 states that the trustee should act in such a kind of a manner that does not cause any sort of a destruction to any trust property. So I hope this video is informational to you. So thank you so much and bye.